sports fans, and welcome back to the Marv on Air Summer Podcast Series, which I do think will be continued into the fall, potentially. If you guys like this, we will see. I'm trying to grow it. We will see what's going on. I'm using this new AMP app. I don't know if you guys have heard of this. It is a way to listen to it live, I guess. So check that out. I'm not sponsored by them or anything, but they do have the option to be like a caller, I think, potentially. Oh, enable call-in. Here we go. Enable call-in. So now you can call in on this app, which is pretty cool. I don't know anything about that, but it will be obviously posted to Spotify, obviously posted to, YouTube. Sorry, I'm just trying to focus on this whole new thing here, but with that being said, let's jump right into the sports stuff because I know we're not here to just dink around and talk about technology. Come on now, this is a sports channel. So we're going to get it started with my weekend. And that's very selfish. My apologies. How was your weekend? It's a Monday. At this point, you're done with work. At this point, you're probably listening to this on a Tuesday. So how was your Monday? How was your weekend? I hope you had a great weekend. Me, myself, personally, Sunday came around. And I didn't really have a whole lot to do, so I laid around on the couch and watched some golf. We had a hell of a golf weekend. We'll talk about that in just a second. But more importantly, I sat down and wanted to watch golf. I like golf. You all know how I feel about baseball. That was the only other thing that I was able to watch at least. And so I sit down. I'm like, hey, we're gonna watch some golf. Listen to some golf. Obviously comes along with that. But my sister sits down. She's like, hey, we're going to absolutely not be watching golf. We're going to be watching baseball. And she's the baseball manager at our high school right now. And I'm like, all right, well, it is what it is. But I suppose we can turn on some baseball. I'll give it a chance. And I will say this. I was very, very surprised by the quality of baseball now that it has the pitch clock. So I've been dogging on baseball quite a bit. I will try to do it a little bit less. Don't get me wrong. It is still not where I want it to be. It's nowhere near my favorite sport. It is still rather boring, but it did have some highlights. It did have, a lot faster pace. I really enjoyed it, but it was just, everyone's going to have their preferences, right? Like my preference is just football, hockey, basketball, lacrosse, field hockey, curling, bowling, golf. All of these things come before baseball. But baseball did actually move up a peg or two in my book, considering the fact that it was actually entertaining to watch. And I really did enjoy my time watching that game. I watched the Cubs play the Orioles. Orioles ended up pulling away in that one. I placed 2 imaginary bets. Of course, they both hit. Of course, I didn't put that money into my FanDuel account. Shout out FanDuel if you're interested in sponsoring the show. Also, I just realized that this subscribe button stuff is up here. My apologies. I was just messing around with that. But do pay attention to that if you want to follow me on Twitter. I'm going to be doing some giveaways here pretty soon if we can get a follower goal going. I like the engagement on there. It's really cool. I've never used Twitter up until this point. Very cool platform. I'm very impressed. But yeah, obviously, if you're seeing this on YouTube, the subscribe reminder right there. And then Instagram is also on there. But with that being said, let's jump right into the actual meat and potatoes of today's episode. And the biggest one being that we're going to jump right into this bad boy right over here. Boom. Mr. Pat the Patriot. Jack Jones has been arrested. Standout cornerback for the Patriots. He had 2 guns, took him to an airport. You can't be doing that. I don't really know. There's no excuses for that. My question is, why? Why did we have 2 guns at an airport, nonetheless? Not just carrying them around. You got picked up by a cop for speeding, and you had the guns just by chance. You literally took them to an airport. Okay, now we've heard stories of people forgetting things that are in their bags in the past, but I just don't understand how you can forget about guns, like 2 guns, 2 Glocks. Okay, I'm not, super tech whiz, so I'm not going to put the guns up on the screen. I probably would if I had a whole crew here, but it is just a one-man show, so I appreciate your patience. But with that being said, Um, yeah, it is unfortunate. As a Patriots fan, I really do wish that we had him on the team. Obviously, I think it's some Chandler something. It's blanking on me right now. I can't remember. But the standout corner we picked in the draft as well, we would only be amplifying that defensive side of the ball. And unfortunately, we are just going to be sitting around hoping that D Hop signs with us, which this is not going to help by any means, and hoping that Mac Jones can throw him some solid balls, because we need to get that offense rolling so that our defense doesn't necessarily need to only hold the opponent to 10 points a game. That's ridiculous. Obviously, we're not going to do that. I really do hope our offense pulls through. Will they? I don't know. This is just all in the works. Obviously, we're very early in this whole situation. It's only June 19th, 2023. But regardless, this is devastating news. I don't know how fast the legal system will work. It's potential that he could end up playing some of, if not all, of this next season in the facility for the Patriots, all that stuff, in the fact that they don't push this case really fast, try to get him in the jail really quickly. He will be potentially serving a mandatory sentence of between like 2 and 30 years or something like that. The 30 years is a ridiculous number, because it's pretty rare that judges, apparently it's just from things I've read online, it's pretty rare that these judges sentence the charges consecutively. That doesn't happen a lot. Regardless, whether he gets 15 or 30 years, I don't think it really matters as far as the football player that is Jack Jones. But I do think, obviously we want him to get out as soon as he can. We obviously want him to be found innocent. If he was innocent, if he was guilty, we want him to be found guilty, whatever the case may be. But if he was found guilty and it was literally just a slip up where he accidentally forgot those guns were in his bag, I don't want him to spend 30 years in prison. I know if I don't own any guns, all right? But if I did and I accidentally left them in my bag and then I got sent to jail for 30 years, I would be pretty sad, because you think about a human's life and they just don't have you don't have that long on the just 30 years is a long time. So, hopefully we don't have to talk about that. Hopefully we get to talk about him coming back to the Patriots, playing for a couple more years. He is just entering his prime, and it would be really cool if he could end up playing for a few more years. Obviously, playing for the Patriots, I really hope he does play for a long time. I don't know if he will. I don't know if he won't. That's up to the legal system at this point. But, that's just the way the cookie crumbles sometimes, and we're going to have to wait to see how this situation progresses. Now, in the intro, I talked a little bit about I watched some golf, I watched some baseball. Let's jump into that golf, because that was the biggest actual sporting event that went on this weekend, and it was the U.S. Open at the LACC, the Los Angeles Country Club. Okay, this was a big deal. Jumping right into the actual winner, Wyndham Clark took the trophy at -10 under par through 72 holes, I believe is the math there. That's an absolutely unbelievable number, and I know that's not the highest, it'd be the lowest number we've ever seen, because you get other rounds and other courses that are a bit easier to play, but traditionally the US Open is a very tough course to play, and a lot of people were complaining they thought the course was a little too easy. When you look at some really good golfers, you'll notice they didn't score that well. Okay, Rory McIlroy came in, shocked the crowd a little bit. I was really rooting for him. He came in at second at -9, just a stroke back. But, I think the -10, the -9, and I think it went to like -7 or -6 for third. Those numbers are a bit of an anomaly. I do think that the course overall was relatively tough. Not as hard as we've seen in previous years, but definitely a tough course nonetheless, and one that we shouldn't necessarily be scoffing at, one that we should say this is a disgrace. Now, I will say this about the whole disgrace situation. Absolutely unbelievable that the LACC would essentially buy over 50% or 50% or over 50%, one of those of the tickets, and sell them to corporations, leading to a lackluster atmosphere. I don't love that. I don't love that that happens for the Super Bowl. These are all situations in which I wish people would end up watching as, true spectators, people who really do care about the game. That can't always be the case. I realize that, but I just wish I mean, there was a hole in one, and the guy who scored it was kind of like, "This sucks. No one was even here to watch this." No one was. There was no roar from the crowd. Excuse me. And I'm 100% with him. That does really stink. So there's that. I mean, I feel for him. I feel for every single golfer out there. I wish they would have made this a little bit more public. Obviously, Augusta not going to be that way, but LACC basically tried to do what Augusta does, and I'm sorry, but if you're not Augusta, you can't do what Augusta does. There is a difference, okay? There's a reason that they are separate events, right? So, with that being said, obviously, shout out to Wyndham Clark. He came in first, big time win. That's a huge win. With that $20 million purse, I don't know what his exact cut was of that, but that's life-changing money. And if he feels like donating, $1 million, Wyndham, if you see this, hit me up on Venmo. I think it's Nick Marvitz. So just saying, just that's all I'm saying. With that being said, let's move on to some NBA. A little bit of NBA. Today's show is gonna be quick. There was not a lot to talk about. There was a decent amount, but I don't know if you're following the podcast, you'll notice that last week I missed a whole week. We had some family stuff going on, so I don't have a ton of energy today, as you could probably tell in comparison to the last episode. But let's jump into the NBA really quick. Zion could be on the move out of New Orleans. The Pelicans have talked about shopping around either Zion or Brandon Ingram, two star players on that team, in not preparation, in an attempt to trade up and get Scoot Henderson. He played in the G League, graduated high school, played in the G League for a while, played pretty well, was impressive, looks pretty jocked, as Pat McAfee and their crew would say. So I think that would be pretty cool. I would like to see Zion in a new situation. I think we're not going to see the best Zion in New Orleans. I really don't. I don't think he's in a. It's one of those things where it's like the situation, right? So you have coaches in the NFL, you have players in the NFL who don't do their best in some spot, then they end up getting released. They sign somewhere else, and they are absolutely unbelievable, right? That kind of situation. Those kinds of situations are things they're kind of cool. I actually really like when that happens because it proves that person isn't bad at what they do. They were just in a situation that didn't allow them to maximize their potential. And so, I really hope Zion moves on from the Pelicans. They could end up trading Brandon Ingram. I don't know what'll happen. I will be interested to see if that trade goes through, what Scoot can do in New Orleans. I'm not saying New Orleans is cursed or anything like that, but I do think it's time for the Pelicans to potentially move on from Zion, and more importantly, Zion to move on from the Pelicans. Not that he has a say in the whole situation, but I would like to see him in a new city. Speaking of curse, though, CP3, Chris Paul, numero tres, is on the move. He has been traded from the Suns to the Washington Wizards in exchange for Bradley Beal. Now, Bradley Beal will be headed down to Phoenix, obviously, and Mr. Chris Paul will be headed up to Washington. That's big time. And one narrative that's being pushed right now are the Suns' absolute locks for the championship. Are they going to win the Larry O'Brien? No. In my opinion, no. Because guess what? That's what we said when KD got traded to the Suns. I don't think that's necessary at all. I don't even know why we're having that conversation, but it's one that we are having. And I guess we have to talk about it a little bit, but I'm not super impressed by what we've seen from super teams like this. Obviously, the Denver Nuggets are not a super team, and they won the championship. So there's always that. I would say be on the lookout for the Suns, but I'm not automatically going to assume that they are going to just win. That's ridiculous. Last point, the standout corner for the Green Bay Packers, Jair Alexander, however you're going to pronounce it, has claimed that Jordan Love is the best quarterback in the National Football League. Absolute absurd take, in my opinion, because that's ridiculous. He hasn't even played has he played a full game? Not to my knowledge, but I don't know much, so it's definitely possible he has. Um, I would say this: if you are a quarterback and you go and tell your absolute rivals team that, if you wish them happy Father's Day and you basically call them your father, I don't know if you could be considered the best quarterback in the league. That's just me. But hey, shout out Jordan Love, spreading the love for all of the Bears fans out there. Got a little bit, unfortunately, but hey, sometimes that happens. I've got before too. But I'm not an NFL quarterback. That's what I'm gonna say about that situation, bro. You gotta be a little more self-aware. You can't be wishing Bears fans happy Father's Day, and along that thread, you can't be the best NFL quarterback if you are wishing your all-time rivals fans happy Father's Day. With that being said, I do wish everyone out there had a happy Father's Day. Um, with that being said, I do wish everyone out there a happy Father's Day from this weekend, obviously. And here we go. We are on the grind yet again. Today is Monday, June 19th, 2023. Tomorrow will be the 20th. I will see you guys then. And I'm excited to see what comes in store for us between now and 24 hours from now. Deuces!